The scene is the Gilles Villeneuve Circuit in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, the 7th Grand Prix of 1984. The season has been dominated so far by the McLarens. Their drivers, two-time world champion Niki Lauda, who has 2 wins this year, and Alain Prost, a 3-time winner so far in 1984 and runner-up in world points last year. Bienvenue à Montreal on the Labatt Canadian Grand Prix. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Bob Jenkins. This is John Bisignano, a 9-year racing veteran in the United States and Europe, and a guy who's been following very closely the Formula One circuit for the past 7 years. John, the 1984 season so far, dominated by the McLaren team.
Completely so. The McLaren team has won 5 out of 6 Grand Prix so far in 1984, and their drivers Alain Prost and Niki Lauda are number 1 and 2 currently in the World Championship standings. Now, the interesting thing is that neither driver has ever done very well here at the Montreal Grand Prix. A long line of DNFs, with actually the best result by Alain Prost last year, finishing 5th. So they have their work cut out for them here this weekend.
Well, the defending world champion Nelson Piquet is on the pole for today's race. Another guy who's been doing very well so far this year, the Renault driver, Derek Warwick. He's finished 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in races this year. Let's go on a lap around the Gilles Villeneuve Circuit with Derek Warwick.
Okay, here we go, coming out of the pit lane here. We come out in the middle of the fast corner, which is normally flat in 5th. It's normally quite a difficult corner to take on race day because of the fact that you're on full tanks. You go through this piece here, you're approaching this corner at roughly about 185 miles an hour, flat in 5th gear, down to 4th for the right-left twist. There's a very bad bump just there, which also upsets the car and normally takes you right to the outside where you see the car going. Up to 5th. You settle the car down to 4th, left-hand corner, about 160 when you're going on a flying lap. You hold 4th all the way into here, down to 2nd, quick splurt to the hairpin, into 1st, round the hairpin, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, just under the bridge you take 5th, speeds of about 150 going into the right-hander, down into 2nd. You take 3rd at the apex on the left. Coming out, you take 4th straight away, which is you go under the bridge here, you take 5th, which is blind completely. It looks just like you're going through a tunnel. On the brakes, down, into 2nd gear again. 3rd in between the corners, 4th on the exit. Very important because you've got a long straight after this corner. You reach speeds of about 180 through here, and you brake on the 100-meter board, as you just see go by now, down into 4th, 3rd, 2nd. You turn in on the 2nd, 3rd again. Again, it's fairly important to come out of this corner well because you have a long straight. Up into 5th, and this is the hairpin before the pits. So you go all the way down through the box into 1st gear. Very difficult corner because it's the slowest corner on the track. It's very important to exit this right, over into the pit lane, up through the box, up into 5th about now, and you cross the start-finishing line, which of course I hope to finish 1st on this afternoon.
So that's a look at the circuit these drivers will be competing on here this afternoon. Now let's call in Barry Gill, who'll be covering the pit area for us. Barry, one of Europe's leading racing journalists. And Barry, the story in the pits today, not refueling, but there will be some pit stops for tires.
Yes, they've stopped refueling, Bob, because of the danger, but this year they're coming in to change tires. They're starting the race on softer tires to get the maximum speed and coming in to try and change 4 tires in about 10 seconds. It's going to be a busy area, and the race could be affected by the teamwork in that area.
The Gilles Villeneuve Circuit is 2.74 miles in length. That's the scene for today's Labatt Canadian Grand Prix. Day here in Montreal with 82 degrees, 8-mile-an-hour winds. winds. The track temperature, however, was quite high at 105 degrees. Now, they're talking about a 30% chance of rain later this afternoon. However, during the running of this event, the chances of rain listed as only 1%. A much different day than it was a year ago here. In fact, this Grand Prix has been plagued with bad weather in years past, but that's not going to be the case today. Well, Barry Gill is standing by in the pit area, and he's going to be introducing to us the grid here today. Here's Barry Gill.
So 12 engines, a lot of engines. If they carry on like this, they won't have enough engines for the Detroit Grand Prix, but these people are certainly having no trouble. That Alain Prost is certainly amazingly competitive this year, as we said earlier, and there you have the Lotus sitting down there in a very comfortable position. Elio De Angelis, the young Italian, very glamorous, good pianist incidentally. There you do have one of the Renault cars, of course, driven by Derek Warwick, who you saw driving around the circuit just a few short seconds ago. And of course the Ferrari of René Arnoux. René is due for a win. In fact, I chose him to win this race on a little lottery that they have at the track here amongst the journalists. I think René Arnoux could do quite well. And of course, in car number 27, Michele Alboreto, a man who I consider, and the man with the red shirt there, by the way, is Porghieri, who is a director of Ferrari on the board of directors and has been the chief engineer of that team for many years. Back there, car number 12 is the other Lotus. That's driven by Nigel Mansell, who was leading the Monaco Grand Prix until he slipped on a banana skin going up the hill to the Hotel de Paris 2 weekends ago. And Niki Lauda, who spun out also in Monte Carlo with a little trouble. National anthem being played at the present time, people standing at attention. Always an emotional moment at any Grand Prix, I always feel. It happens at Indianapolis, it happens in every Grand Prix in every nation that we visit. Very touching moment. The crowds stand in silence, the flags of all the nations fly, the mechanics have butterflies, as do the drivers. There's nobody without an emotional touch at a time like this. Young Senna, the man who finished second in the Grand Prix of Monaco, as we go further back in the grid there, one of the Ligier cars, also been having trouble all the way through this weekend. That car there, in fact, was the one of Andrea De Cesare. There you see the Alfa Romeo, Eddie Cheever, young American driver living in Monaco today. A great spectacle, the start of a Grand Prix, great electricity in the air. It's a pregnant silence before the engines start up, and they've just done so now. A few short minutes away, they will continue around the racetrack one more lap. They'll try to keep in order.
And of course, Jackie Stewart running down the first 12 cars in this Grand Prix of Canada. We are taking our feed today from the British Broadcasting Corporation, and Jackie introduced us to the first 12 drivers in this race. Starting in 13th position, François Hinault in a Ligier. In 14th spot will be Riccardo Patrese in an Alfa Romeo. In 15th position, former world champion Keke Rosberg in a Williams. Then in 16th spot, Corrado Fabi in the Parmalat Brabham. Of course, Fabi is replacing his brother Teo, who is racing in Portland later this afternoon in a race you'll see live on ESPN. The 17th starting position held down by Jacques Lafitte in another Williams. Then in 18th position, Thierry Boutsen, the Barclay Arrows car. 19th spot, Piercarlo Cinzani in the Osella. In 20th starting position, Johnny Ceccato in the Tolman. 21st starting position, Martin Brundle in the Tyrrell Ford. A normally aspirated engine. There are only 3 normally aspirated engines in this race today as the drivers are taking their warm-up lap. In 22nd starting position, another normally aspirated engine in another Tyrrell, driven by Stefan Beloff. Mark Schur in another Arrows car has a normally aspirated engine. He starts in 23rd position. 24th, Hub Rottengatter. He is a newcomer to the Formula One circuit in a Spirit. 25th starting position, Formula 2 driver Mike Thackwell. And in 26th spot will be Philippe Alliot in the Ram Skoal Bandit. Well, John, the weather is beautiful, and thousands of spectators have gathered here on the Isle of Notre Dame, which is just outside of Montreal in the St. Lawrence River, anticipating a tremendous race this afternoon. Who are you picking?
Well, since the beginning of the season, I've been picking Team Lotus, so sooner or later I'm going to have to be correct. I think Elio De Angelis, the winner of the Austrian Grand Prix a few years ago, has been hampered by developing a car capable of running with this Renault Turbo. And I think they're right on the brink of becoming very, very successful throughout the second half of this season.
One of the things that you have to look for are the times that were turned in this morning in practice, their final practice period, and those were the times turned in with a full load of fuel and a complete race setup. Rennie Arnoux turned in the fastest time in practice this morning, and his teammate, Michele Alboreto, the other Ferrari driver, was second quickest, so maybe that's something we should look for in the race.
For sure. Michele Alboreto can always race maybe better than he can qualify. He's one of these drivers who puts someone in front of him, and all of a sudden he finds another half second in his lap times. Michele will be a challenge in this race up until the very last lap for sure.
This is a 16-turn road course, 2.7 miles in length. There are essentially two hairpins. Turn number 16 is a hairpin. That is where the cars are right at this moment. And there to the left of your screen is the entrance to the pit area. Now, the drivers will be stopping, of course, here at the start-finish line in front of us for their traditional standing start to the Canadian Grand Prix. Team Brabham being led today by their driver Nelson Piquet, who holds down the pole for the event. Shot from overhead. The other remaining cars in the field going through the hairpin and now stopping at the start-finish line.
One of the few last standing starts in North America, actually, most of the starts being rolling starts. This considered much more exciting to the Europeans and carried on over here.
There was an incident that occurred here at the Canadian Grand Prix a few years ago that has caused a rules change. You can see the starter giving the flag, and the race is on. Into turn number 1, which is a left-hander, now into turn number 2, a right-hander. They'll go down a short straightaway here, coming right at you before setting up for turn number 3, which is a right-hand turn. Now moving into turn number 4, and again down a straightaway, and this is one of the longer straightaways on the course. The speeds that have been turned in here, right around 170 miles an hour. Now into turn number 5 and 6, a series of S's here before heading for turn 7, which leads to turn number 8. That is one of the two hairpin turns. And a challenge for the lead as Piquet moves to the inside and takes over first spot.
Tremendous move on the inside of that particular passing area. Nelson always looking for any room whatsoever where to stick that Brabham nose.
Piquet leading now down into turn number 10. Again onto a straightaway. And this is the area of the race course that will be known as the back stretch. This is the longest stretch that they'll be going through. Now into turn number 14. And into turn number 15. Then again, a short straightaway leading down to and under the Parmalat Bridge. And then downshifting, braking hard for the hairpin, turn number 16, and the completion of one lap. They come down in front of us for the first time. There are 70 laps in the Canadian Grand Prix, and Nelson Piquet still is the leader. Alain Prost running second. Alboreto is third. A battle for fourth between Rennie Arnoux and Helio De Angelis.
Nelson was just a little bit slow off the line at the start of the race, but now he's showing his qualifying speed in these opening laps and actually pulling away from Alain Prost.
Some of the drivers that are starting toward the rear that we want to keep our eye on, at least here in the broadcast booth. Keke Rosberg, former world champion who started in 15th, moved up one spot on that first lap, now running in 14th position. Martin Brundle, one of the Tyrrell drivers, the normally aspirated car, started 21st, moved up to 16th, and Stefan Beloff in the other Tyrrell started 22nd, moved up one spot to 21st. Now, these normally aspirated engines don't perform as well, of course, as the turbocharged engine as far as speed is concerned, but a couple of things they do, and that is they're a little bit more reliable, and they, of course, don't consume the fuel that the turbocharged engines do.
That's a good point, and fuel means weight in these cars. The turbocharged cars have to carry a full load of 220 liters, where the normally aspirated engines can start with quite a bit less fuel, saving weight. Power to weight ratio equals speed during the race.
On lap number 2 of the Canadian Grand Prix, Nelson Piquet is leading over Alain Prost. Alboreto and Arnoux, teammates, running in 3rd and 4th position. Here comes Piquet. As you can see, he has 10 victories and 85 starts. The field moving through the hairpin once again, turn 16. Down in front of us for time number 2, and once again into turns number 1 and 2. Straight away headed for turns 3 and 4. Nelson Piquet leading the Brazilian driver. Nelson, 31 years of age, a 2-time world champion in 1981 and, of course, last year in 1983. Last year, John, not necessarily a good year in terms of wins for Nelson Piquet, but he was very consistent throughout the year.
Tremendous reliability, picking up his points by finishing 3rd and 4th. Also a couple very nice victories. But Nelson last year won the World Championship on dependability, which is a bit strange this year because he has yet to finish a Grand Prix. The BMW Formula One engine, which was so reliable last year, has been plagued with small technical troubles. In the French Grand Prix, all 5 BMW cars went out within, correction, all 4 BMW cars went out within 5 laps of one another. But it seems now that they have things well in hand here in Canada.
Nelson, the only race that Nelson Piquet has finished this year was the Belgian Grand Prix, in which he finished 10th. There are the first 4, Piquet, Prost, Alboreto, and René Arnoux. They move once again into the hairpin, turn number 16. We complete 3 laps here. 70 laps will make up this Canadian Grand Prix, named in honor of Gilles Villeneuve, who I have come to learn in my short stay here in Canada was almost a national hero in this area of the country.
He was their national, international hero, a sportsman and a real competitor, someone that represented the sport and his country in the best way possible, and an extremely, extremely quick Canadian driver. Missed here by everyone.
And of course, Jacques Villeneuve, as we take a replay of some action in the pack, and once again go to the leader, Nelson Piquet. Jacques Villeneuve, who is Gilles' brother, of course, is a competitor this year in the IndyCar circuit, and he will be among those competing later this afternoon here on ESPN in the Portland 200 from Portland, Oregon for IndyCars. By the way, the first 8 qualifiers for that race, Mario Andretti will be on the pole, Danny Sullivan alongside. 2nd row, Guerrero and Andretti. 3rd row, Daly and Mears. And the 4th row, Teo Bobby and Bobby Rahal. We'll be back with more from the Canadian Grand Prix. Right now, Nelson Piquet is the leader. Back at the Canadian Grand Prix, I'm Bob Jenkins, along with John Bizignano and Barry Gill covering the pit area for us this afternoon. Nelson Piquet, the leader of the Canadian Grand Prix, with Alain Prost running 2nd, Michele Alboreto 3rd, René Arnoux is 4th, and Elio De Angelis running in 5th position as we go back into the pack and pick up some of the action back here.
Actually, Niki Lauda seems to have gone around Elio during that particular break. Niki always a challenger and a good racer. Again, a better racer than he is qualifier. And Elio is being very closely followed by the Renault-powered and designed Renault, driven by Derek Warwick.
Now, Derek's teammate, Patrick Tambay, is not competing in the race here today. There is only one Renault car in the race. The reason for that is because Tambay broke a bone in his leg the last race in Monaco and was not cleared medically to compete here this afternoon at Canada.
The leg was actually broken by a piece of the suspension coming all the way through the monocoque and striking him just under the knee. He's in quite a bit of pain, tried to fit into the car and do a good job on Friday morning, but decided very wisely that it just wasn't possible at this Grand Prix. He's actually in the booth here talking to the Swiss television.
It's very interesting to listen to all the languages that this race is being done in. We're in a broadcast booth here shared by several broadcasters from various countries. The race is, of course, being either televised or broadcast to virtually every country in Europe and many in South America. Rago Saidas, the South American broadcasters. Nelson Piquet from Brazil, one of those South American drivers, is in the lead, with Alain Prost running in 2nd spot, and then the Ferrari cars in 3rd and 4th. And it looks like that Alboreto in 3rd position, beginning to put a challenge now, or at least drawing closer to Prost in 2nd spot.
Michele has been gaining on Prost these last 3 laps, and you're going to see a real battle there for the second place. Neither one of these drivers like to be passed, but the maneuvers will be to the ultimate of everyone's talent to try and get by.
Talking with several of the drivers and finding out exactly where are the positions to pass on this track. Several of them expressed the opinion that it's not especially easy to pass on this track. They say that one of the areas to pass in is at the end of the straightaway leading to the hairpin, and if you can get an advantage there, and you can make a pass going into the hairpin turn number 16. There again is Derek Warwick as we go back up front and focus in on the driver who is running in 3rd position at this point, Michele Alboreto.
Michele being the hand-picked driver by Enzo Ferrari to be the first Italian back in a red Ferrari car for many, many years. Enzo hoping to have an Italian world champion in his Ferrari cars, and a real battle going on here between Elio De Angelis and Derek Warwick.
6th and 7th position being contested there. Right now, Elio De Angelis in 6th position and Derek Warwick in the Renault running in 7th place.
Both cars are powered by the exact same power plant, so you can imagine how equally matched they are. Tires and driving style and chassis development are really the only differences.
This is the site of the Expo 67 back in 1967 here in Montreal, and you can see in the background occasionally some of the structures that were built for that still stand. Aside from the use of this facility for a race course, there are other things that it's used for. It's used for jogging and cycling and cross-country skiing in the wintertime. It's really a very beautiful area located across the water from the actual downtown area of Montreal. De Angelis and Warwick, 6th and 7th position here.
Tires are so fragile in Formula One. You see Derek made a challenge and possibly may have heated his tires to a point where he had to drop back and let them cool off for another lap or so. This challenge will probably resume after his tires are back to a perfect operating temperature.
Niki Lauda running in 5th position. Niki, of course, making a comeback, or made the comeback several years ago, actually, from the injury suffered in the accident several years ago, and has won 2 races so far this year. Here's the leader, Nelson Piquet, followed by Alain Prost, and the Ferraris driven by Alboreto and René Arnoux. About a 6 or 7 car length lead now for Nelson Piquet, who has had the lead since the drop of the green flag.
This is a good position for Nelson. He always says that he would rather lead than follow. Many drivers are more comfortable to try and catch someone than to lead a pack, but not Nelson Piquet. This is his favorite position, out front with everyone chasing him.
There are the standings: Piquet, Prost, Alboreto, Arnoux, Lauda, and De Angelis. The first 6 positions here, as 8 tours, or laps, as we say in America, have been completed. One of the Ligier cars coming into the pits now.
Looks like Hainaut. First year in Formula One. Yes, it is. It says Andrea De Cesaris, but that is not Andrea.
It is indeed Francois Hainaut, the driver of car number 25, De Ligier. This is Francois' 6th race. Earlier this year, he has a 10th place finish in the South American Grand Prix. The others, he either did not finish or did not qualify. John, one of the things we've been noticing is these cars often bottom out as we have this challenge here for 6th and 7th position. These cars sometimes bottom out on this racetrack, and you can perhaps see the sparks coming from the underneath of the cars on occasion. Back with more live coverage of the Canadian Grand Prix in just a moment. Just as you join us, Michele Alboreto, who is running in 3rd spot, has stalled on the course. Nelson Piquet is still leading, and there is the 2nd place car driven by Alain Prost. But Alboreto is out of the race, and that's going to move René Arnoux up into 3rd spot now. Let's pick up on the point that we were making before the commercial, John, and that is the fact that you may see some of the cars bottoming out, especially in this area of the racetrack.
Going over those bumpy sections and into a hard braking area, especially the Parmalat gravel, runs very soft suspension settings during the race, softer than any other Formula One car, and with 220 liters of fuel on board, that's a tremendous weight to be carrying over those bumps. Now later in the race you'll see less sparks because of the weight of the car is decreasing, but at the moment he's getting quite a shock every time he hits those bumps, and it's quite spectacular to say the least.
Alain Prost running second now, just biding his time, it would appear, waiting for perhaps the engine on Piquet's car to let go, as it has so many times this year. But right now, Nelson Piquet showing the way and running well here at the Canadian Grand Prix.
Both these cars are Michelin-shod automobiles, so you're not going to see any advantage or disadvantage tire-wise. They may be running different compounds, but it's the same manufacturer.
There is Prost once again in car number 7.
Coming up on some back markers here, actually. It'll be interesting to see how they handle. Coming into the hairpin is the Skoal Bandit ahead of Nelson. Moving over gentlemanly, letting the leader go by.
And the DeAngelis and Warwick battle is continuing out there. These drivers have been running together on the racetrack since the race began. Now we're talking about a 5th and 6th place for those two drivers with the demise of Alboreto. And there are the standings: Piquet, Prost, Arnoux, Lauda, DeAngelis, and Warwick. DeAngelis leading Warwick out of the hairpin turn down the front stretch in front of us. And now Warwick making a move to the outside, trying to pick up that spot into 5th, and he does it. So Derek Warwick has moved into 5th position now.
Fantastic move there. It seemed like the Renault was a little bit better on the brakes, but Elio was always pulling away from him on exiting the corners. So Elio may have let him go by on the brakes.
We'll take a look at it again and see the nice move that Warwick did make.
And Elio really not challenging him on this move. He must be thinking that I cannot hold him off on the braking, but let's see what happens at the next straightaway. Of course, Derek again using his brakes all the way around. A fantastic shot there. Going into the far hairpin.
Both of these cars, of course, are Renault power. The Renault chassis driven by Warwick, and another car into the pits. That is Piercarlo Ghinzani.
Alfa Romeo turbocharged engine, an Italian team, very small Italian team actually. Only a fraction of the money to spend in employees, handled by some of these larger teams with Ferrari 300 employees in their racing department. Osella trying to do the same type of job with a mere 35 or 40.
Ghinzani, who just dropped out of the race, or at least came into the pits. This was only his 13th Formula One race. His first was in Belgium back in 1981, in which he finished 13th. The lead continues to be held by Nelson Piquet, with Alain Prost running second, René Arnoux third, Niki Lauda fourth, and this battle here between Warwick and DeAngelis for 5th and 6th. Right now, Warwick has 5th spot.
Of course, the Formula One points go down to 6th place, so even though 6th is somewhat away from the leader, it's fought for just as hard as anything else on the grid. Mike Thackwell there in the Skoal Bandit, who is going to be the Formula 2 European champion this year.
We've been following the Formula 2 season on our ESPN Speed Week show, which is on every Thursday evening at 7:30 Eastern Daylight Time. And this young Mike Thackwell has been doing a tremendous job on the Formula 2 circuit this year. And in his Formula One race here today, not his first Formula One race. In fact, it is his second. He is replacing Jonathan Palmer, who is the regular driver of the Skoal Bandit car number 10. Once again, Derek Warwick and Elio DeAngelis, the Renault, and the Lotus.
It's only a temporary replacement, with Jonathan Palmer being at Le Mans this weekend, with his first commitment being to that endurance race. A conflicting date which should have really not happened between Formula One and major endurance racing. And into the pits, it's René Arnoux. It looks like possibly a tire change for sure.
And there is the Ghinzani car that dropped out of the race a few minutes ago, but up toward the other end of the pits, and here he comes back out there. René Arnoux, car number 28.
So that's the first pit stop for tires this Canadian Grand Prix.
the interval between first and second. Piquet and Alain Prost.
There's really no reason for Alain to challenge Piquet this early in the race. He's saving his tires, maybe looking for a mistake that Nelson might make, although that's something that very rarely happens for sure. McLarens have dominated the whole Formula One scene so far this season, but here the team that everyone thought could challenge them is leading the event, with the reliability of the Brabham looking very strong here.
12 laps have been completed out of 70 in the Canadian Grand Prix. Turn number 16 here. First and second position. There is Alain Prost in car number 7.
Just keeping Nelson in his sights. Another thing they have to think about is the fuel economy. Now, last year they were allowed to refuel, but because of the danger and so forth, this year they have to go the whole distance on a maximum of 220 liters. So if they're in a position like this where they can keep each other in their sight, no one's knocking on his back door too hard, and he can simply drive a little bit more economically and know that he can have enough fuel to challenge in the later stages of the event.
That translates to about 58 American gallons, so it's really not very much to complete this race on. We'll be back with more from the Canadian Grand Prix in Montreal in a moment. As we put you behind the wheel of a Can-Am car as we bring you the first in a series of Can-Am races this year. This one from Mosport Park in Canada, located quite a bit west of here near Toronto. The first of 7 Can-Am races you'll see this season on ESPN. Catch it Saturday, June the 30th. We are at the Canadian Grand Prix on this Sunday afternoon and a big day of auto racing. Later this afternoon at 5 o'clock Eastern Time, live from Portland, Oregon, Larry Nuber and others will be bringing you the 200-mile kart race for Indianapolis-type cars. Down to Barry Gill.
This is the reason. This is what has happened to the tire in just those few laps, 14 laps. It's very hot indeed out there, Jackie, and you can see what it's doing to the tire. Other news from the pits, Ginzani is out of the race because of his gearbox, and Haino stopped because of a turbo problem. I've got a feeling, Jackie and Brian, we're going to have a lot more pit visitors very shortly indeed.
Gill reporting from the pit area. Giancarlo Ginzani was up here in the broadcast booth, in fact, just right beside us, explaining his problem. And as you heard Barry say, it was a gearbox problem. And John, the temperature that we talked about at the very start of the broadcast, with the track temperature at 105 degrees, apparently is playing a role here in the early stages.
For sure, with that type of temperature, first of all, these drivers are experiencing possibly as much as 120 degrees inside their cars, and they are not too sparsely clothed. They have 5 layers of fireproof dress on and a helmet and a balaclava that goes over their face, and it can be an uncomfortable position. As far as the tires go, I'm actually a little bit surprised that this early in the race there was that much damage done. Again, that can be done in 1 lap, and maybe Rene Arnoux, in trying to get past a certain car or making a certain maneuver, blistered those tires before they really should have gone off. That's going to be a problem because now Rene has to go the rest of the race supposedly on the tires that he has, and that is going to be a very difficult situation. He's going to have to drive extremely smoothly and not try and do that same mistake again.
There is the leader, Nelson Piquet, in the Parmalat Brabham. A lot of American people probably aren't familiar with what some of these sponsors represent. Parmalat, which sponsors the Brabham cars, is the Italian national dairy. Of course, we're all familiar with Marlboro and what it is on the Alain Prost and Niki Lauda cars. But as we go through the afternoon and spot some of the sponsors on these cars, we'll tell you who they are or what they are. We were talking earlier about the fuel situation. They're not permitted to stop for fuel. They're allowed 58.01 American gallons, or 220 liters, but there are a lot of people looking at ways in which to get more fuel out of 58 gallons. And one of those things they're doing is cooling it.
It's almost taken down to the freezing temperature, and this compacts the density of the fuel. So I don't know the exact figures because team managers are very secretive about that sort of thing, but you're talking about an extra 2 or 3 gallons over and above the legal amount. Now, that is after the fuel has warmed up and therefore is only refilling the part that has been used. So they are within the rules. Here we have our leader coming up on the Barclay Arrows car of Mark Schurer. Mark will certainly let him go by. Mark driving the normally aspirated Cosworth car, and Nelson does go by. Mark again realizing he's only about 150 horsepower down and would never do anything to hold up the current race leader. And also, I don't think he'll give Alain Prost any trouble. Barclay Arrows is running one turbocharged BMW engine and one Cosworth car. With a shortage of BMW engines at the moment, they haven't been able to go to a full two-car BMW team, something that probably they will do when the series returns to Europe after Dallas.
Mark Schurer, who is running right behind our leader, Nelson Piquet, but who is not in the top 20 at this point, is a Swiss driver. This is his 56th Formula One race, and his best finish was a fourth back in 1981 at the Brazilian Grand Prix. Did not finish the race here in Canada last year.
Mark, a very talented driver, of course, always looking for equipment to equal his driving talents.
Now Alain Prost is looking for the opportunity to pass Schurer. As we continue to follow our leader, Nelson Piquet. He's coming out of the hairpin, and there is the Alain Prost situation as he's following Mark Schurer across the start-finish line, completing 19 laps, and there's one of the Pullman cars with Ayrton Senna, and he right now is being shown in 8th position. He started 9th. He is, of course, the driver who was doing exceptionally well at the most recent Grand Prix in Monaco. In fact, running second and gaining about 2 seconds a lap, they say. But unfortunately, the race was halted because of inclement weather, and he had to settle for a second. But a lot of people believe that he had the ability to win that race in Monaco.
Not only he thought he had the ability to win, but the winner of the race, Alain Prost, said that for sure within another couple laps that Senna would have been in a passing position and he would not have challenged him. Prost was having a very difficult time with his brakes, them being made out of carbon fiber, so weight advantage, but in the wet not being able to de-accelerate the way he was hoping to. Now, a further story is that the normally aspirated car, Stefan Beloff, was in 3rd position at the time the race was called, and everyone agrees that if it went the distance and if Stefan did not make any mistakes, that he actually would have overtaken Senna.
Senna in number 19 here, and an opportunity to mention another one of the sponsors. Candy is written on the side of that car, number 19, right ahead of the one we just saw there, driven by Nigel Mansell, the red and white and blue car there in front of Mansell, sponsored by Candy. That has nothing to do with any sweet thing to eat. That is an appliance manufacturer in Europe.
Centrally located in Italy, actually, but they distribute their washing machines and dryers and refrigerators and stoves all over Europe, the biggest appliance manufacturer in Europe, and they do an excellent marketing program through this most dynamic media of Formula One.
20 laps have been completed, and the leader continues to be Nelson Piquet, and he has led all race to this point. 31-year-old driver from Brazil.
Bob, you mentioned that the Can-Am race will be coming up soon, and I think it's interesting to point out here that Keke Rosberg was a previous world champion. Here you see the standings again with Nelson Piquet still leading. We had Nelson never being in a Formula Can-Am car, but there was some great experience put in by Keke Rosberg, Patrick Tambay, both being champions in Can-Am, showing that American racing does make a very good learning position for Formula One international competitors.
Well, we will be back with more action from the Canadian Grand Prix in just a moment. Right now, Nelson Piquet with Alain Prost running second. Canadian Grand Prix, where Nelson Piquet continues to lead, and by the way, he has just turned the fastest lap of the race so far at 109.384 miles an hour. Here is Rene Arnoux moving back up through the field after having made that pit stop.
Again, coming out of the pit stop with a new set of tires, he is going to be quicker initially. He is on the inside of the track. Elio sees him. Maybe a thought in his mind of closing the door, but Elio knows the position that he's going to have to save those tires the rest of the race. It looks like Elio might not be planning a pit stop the conservative way that he's driving.
Huub Rothengatter has come into the pits, and it looks like this situation may be terminal. The mechanics are working on the right side of the car, changing the rubber, but a conference going on with the driver.
Team manager John Wicken there.
And I think he has given the indication that well, they're going to raise the car up on the jacks.
It doesn't seem too terribly motivated down there at the moment. I can't think that there isn't some other problem besides those tires. Glenn Rolfson working away there, the #1 mechanic.
Rothengatter from Holland, as you see, and one of the other Dutch drivers that we have watched with a lot of interest in the United States, Arie Luijendijk, who is a regular Super V competitor and who was in fact entered at the Indianapolis 500 this year, but did not get an opportunity to run the car. There is Nelson. There is Corrado Fabi, who is in this race, replacing his brother Teo, who, as we indicated earlier, is driving in Portland this afternoon. Rothengatter apparently has the work completed on that car, and he's going back out onto the course.
It could have been that Huub felt something very strange on the car and therefore slowed down, and they weren't really sure if there was a problem or if the tires had gone off. He is coming into this race first time in competition for a very long time. He may have just been overcautious there. There are the Barkley Arrows going by now. The leader is really in a pack of back markers. This is a very tense time for a leader. Anything could go wrong with some of these people very involved in their own races and might not be totally aware of a faster car coming up behind them.
The only American driver in this race that we have not mentioned, and that is Martin Brundle there in the #3 Tyrrell car. There is Fabi. The American driver who we have not mentioned to this point, Eddie Cheever, started in 11th position and is currently still running in 11th position.
Tremendous battle here going on, trying to get by these back markers.
Okay, trying to move through the slower cars on the race course. Here he comes into one of the...
Now he's gotten by Johnny Giocato there, former motorcycle champion. Now the first car here, that is not Nelson, that's his teammate.
That is Fabi.
Fabi, there's Nelson.
And right ahead of him, one of the, right here in front of PK is one of the Arrows cars.
Now these are 3 BMW powered cars here, so even though Thierry Boutsen in the Barkley Arrows there is probably in a race with Fabi, he has just as much power going down that straightaway as Nelson, and he really can't be asked to put himself in a position of losing the battle with Fabi to just let the leader go by. The leader has to earn it. And Huub coming back in the pits for sure. There is another problem. No.
Well, I guess he's not. It looked like he was going to go on to pit road, but instead he stays on the race course. He's moving at a very slow speed. This is Huub Rothengatter.
It could be that he's missing a gear. It seems like coming out of the slower corners, he has no power whatsoever, and there the teammate lets Nelson go by. Now it'll be interesting to see if he is as friendly with second place Alain Prost when he gets in that position. Very close running here now.
Prost is the 4th car here in this series. It is Nelson Piquet running ahead, and then Corrado Fabi, then Boutsen, and then Alain Prost. There he is. So Prost has 2 cars to pass here, 2 cars to put a lap on before he can begin his pursuit again of Nelson Piquet.
The Arrows car of Thierry Boutsen is also sponsored by one of the American companies. There he goes through.
And Alain Prost moving to the inside of Boutsen and putting a lap. Here's Barry Gilligan.
We found out what went wrong with the other Ferrari. Poor old Michele Alboreto has just told me he had fuel problems, so he's out. And another man we're not going to see much more of is poor old Huub Rothengatter. In his first ever Grand Prix, he stopped for new tyres, he stalled his engine, and he's now got gearbox problems. Just not his day.
That was a very good observation, John, because it was a gearbox problem that is plaguing Rothengatter, and it was a fuel problem that has sidelined Michele Alboreto, who was running in 3rd place at the time that he had to stop on the race course. Here's the leader, Nelson Piquet, car #1, the Parmalat Brabham. Second place is Alain Prost. Third is Niki Lauda. Fourth is Derek Warwick. And fifth is Rene Arnoux. We're back with more from Montreal in just a moment. Back at the Canadian Grand Prix, Nelson Piquet is the leader. Alain Prost running second. Niki Lauda is third. Rene Arnoux is fourth. And Derek Warwick is in fifth position. We've been watching the Ferrari of Rene Arnoux move back up through the pack as he made a pit stop. Joining us in the broadcast booth is his teammate, Michele Alboreto, who unfortunately suffered some mechanical problems early in the race. Michele, what was the problem?
I think it's a fuel pump broken.
You were running in third position at the time, and there, by the way, is your car on the left or the right side of the screen. You were running in third position. Was the car working well for you up to that point?
My car was very good, and I wait the first part of the race for make an attack to Prost and Piquet. I am very unlucky this year, I think.
How are the track conditions? We heard the track temperature is something like 105 degrees, and your teammate came in to change tires because of some blistering. Is it hot out there?
For our car, I think this weather condition is very good because we need a hot temperature for our car. Unfortunately, Rene have make a pit stop because his tire is not very good, but for me, I have not the same problem at the beginning of the race.
Thank you for joining us, and we wish you a lot of good luck in coming Grand Prix.
Thank you.
Michele Alboreto, one of the drivers who went out of the race early here at the Canadian Grand Prix. There are other races going on here this afternoon throughout the United States. We've told you about the kart race from Portland later. There was a NASCAR race going on at Michigan International Speedway. The 2-mile high-banked tri-oval, and at this point, Benny Parsons, who has joined us in the broadcast booth for a couple of times on our NASCAR races. He is leading that 400-mile, 200-lap encounter at Michigan International Speedway. But here in Canada, at Montreal, the Isle of Notre Dame, the Gilles Villeneuve circuit, it is Nelson Piquet leading with Alain Prost still running in second spot.
You can see on the front of that car, this is a new nose cone that was fitted for this particular event, and the standings there in front of you, Nelson Piquet, Alain Prost, Niki Lauda holding down third for quite some time now, but he will be challenged by Rene Arnoux. That new nose cone that you see on the Brabham, that is an oil cooler. This was actually designed not for Canada or Detroit, but the upcoming Dallas race, and of course they like to try and test things before it goes into use the first time. So you may see that same nose in Detroit, or they may switch back to the other one. But what that hole is there is sucking in air, trying to cool the oil of these turbocharged engines, which get very hot. A little extra cooling for Dallas planned.
Well, these Formula One drivers will be in the United States for the next two races. The next event will be in Detroit, Michigan, the Detroit Grand Prix, and then, as you indicated, the next stop is in Dallas, Texas, the first time that the Formula One cars will have competed in that southern city.
And that will be warm.
I'm sure will be, and it's always hot and also humid down in that area of the country also.
Formula One boys do race in hot countries, but they're not used to so much humidity as they'll find in Texas, that's for sure.
31 laps completed. Piquet is first, and we're watching Niki Lauda in the number 8 McLaren. And right ahead of him is the number 14 car, driven by Manfred Winkelhock. Manfred has qualified well in most of the races prior to this one. Today, he qualified in 12th starting position, but Manfred has not been successful as far as completing races is concerned. There is Alain Prost, second place car, who has just put a lap on Winkelhock. But Manfred has not finished a race this year, as a matter of fact, but he has started as far up as 6th in Grand Prix competition.
Qualifying, but very well, always. Doing much better this year than ever before, but being plagued with minor mechanical problems.
We have a new fast lap turned in the race, and by the way, track records are recorded only during race competition. There is no such thing as a qualifying one-lap record, but the new fast fastest lap during today's race was just 2 laps ago. That was turned by Niki Lauda at 110.009 miles an hour. Now, in terms of speed, what would these cars achieve as far as a trap speed is concerned, or the fastest before backing off for a turn?
Well, that is determined by how long of a straightaway you're on, of course. At Indianapolis, you can see speeds well in excess of 200 miles an hour. Niki Lauda going by Winkelhock there again. Winkelhock actually must have passed him back somewhere. But Formula One cars are capable of about 190, 195 at some of the longer straightaways on the Formula One circuit. I think South Africa is the fastest, where they touch about 208 miles an hour, which is extremely fast for these 1,200-pound cars.
Niki Lauda in the McLaren, car number 8, being shown now in 3rd position. Ahead of Niki is Alain Prost and Nelson Piquet.
The tag that you see on the side of Niki Lauda's car there in good view, that's the engine builder. It stands for Technique Avant-Garde. And now slowing car, it looks like a Skoal Bandit slowing down on the inside. Tag is the engine builder. Engine designed by Porsche. The tag taking over the maintenance and doing some excellent sponsorship also with the Williams team.
The McLarens are running 2nd and 3rd here at the Canadian Grand Prix at this point, with Prost in 2nd and Niki Lauda in 3rd. Vinny Arnoux, who has made a pit stop, is in 4th spot, and Derek Warwick is in 5th.
Jacques Laffite slowing down there. Very serious problem, looks like, with some oil coming out of the back of his car.
Jacques Laffite, the French driver, driving for Williams this year, one of the most experienced race drivers. He has competed on the Formula One circuit for several years. This is his 43rd race, as a matter of fact. He is 40 years old, but some mechanical problems have popped up for Jacques Laffite here in Montreal. We'll be right back with more of the Canadian Grand Prix. The Auto Racing 84 Series all summer long, and the next time after today that we'll be with you will be in Cleveland, Ohio for the CART PPG IndyCar World Series race. That will be the CART Budweiser Cleveland Grand Prix, a 300-mile event. Join us for that action on Sunday, July the 8th at 1 o'clock Eastern Time right here on ESPN. Well, there is Jacques Laffite, who we had, oh, pardon me, that is Keke Rosberg, who has problems. There is Derek Warwick.
Jack, what happened?
I think the turbo was out. One of the 2 turbo is out.
Very sorry, Jack. This is his course where you've done so well, of course, isn't it?
No, I know my car was not too bad for racing, but you know we have a very bad testing qualification, and it's always difficult to start on 17th position, and also I missed my start with my engine, blah, 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 and I was 21, 22 at the start. It's a bad position on the grid. Anyway.
Better luck next time, Jack. Thank you.
So the Williams cars have run into a problem here at the same time as Laffite is out of the race, and Keke Rosberg was going very slowly on the racetrack. The race is exactly half over now. Half of the laps have been completed, and Nelson Piquet in car number 1, there he is, continues to run in the lead. He has held the lead all race long to this point. And Alain Prost has run 2nd all race long. Well, we should be seeing some pit stops occurring here before too long, John. Barry Gill once again.
Drama here in the Williams pit. No sooner have we stopped talking to Jacques Laffite, who's come in because of a turbo problem, and world champion Keke Rosberg, the former world champion, lying 7th, has come in as well. We will certainly try and get a word with him and come back to you in the booth.
That is the situation that we just talked about. The Williams drivers experiencing problems at just about the same time. Both of those cars into the pits. We'll stand by for a report from Barry Gill and perhaps a word from Keke Rosberg.
I was asking the team managers about tire changes, and again, this is something they want to keep very secret. They said I'd go off and tell the whole United States exactly what their race plan is, and they didn't want that to happen. Now, here we have a scheduled tire stop. That's the Ligier car driven by Andrea De Cesaris. We have a clock on him, 6 seconds. They seem to be moving a little slowly.
certainly not as quickly as we see in IndyCar racing as far as a tire change is concerned.
Well, this is very slow even for Formula One standards, and maybe note he's going out again.
Almost 21 seconds there on the stop by Andrea de Cesaris. As we go back up front and check on the progress of the leader, Nelson Piquet, and we wonder at this point if he will be making a pit stop. Now we can see that Alain Prost has gotten by all of the cars that are separating himself from the leader, and perhaps it's the time that Alain Prost is thinking about making a challenge for the lead here with the race just a little bit more than half over. There's Prost in second, and to the inside, trying to pass one of the back markers, the third place car driven by Niki Lauda. Rene Arnoux, once again, in car number 28, is in fourth position at this point, having already made a pit stop.
Beautiful red cars of Ferrari, so distinctive. The Jeep on the car again. That's the Italian Petroleum Company.
Let's go to Barry Gill.
Well, I'm in a very unhappy pit indeed as I fled first track the feet and then the former world champion Jackie Rosberg. Jackie, what happened?
The engine just cut off. I think electric. It just quite without any warning stop.
Really hasn't been the Williams weekend, has it?
No, I think the race was going reasonably, but then this happened. I think it would have been looking quite good at the end of the race.
You certainly looked as if you're going to get some points, Keke. You must be very disappointed.
You always are when you don't finish a race, because only the finishers get rewarded.
Here's to the next time, Keke. Thanks for talking to us.
Being a
Keke Rosberg, the Finnish driver, the 1982 world champion, last year was fifth in points. His two career wins have come at Sweden in 1982 and Monaco in 83. He will not win the Canadian Grand Prix in 1984. He and his teammate Jacques Lafitte are both out with mechanical problems.
Keke actually owes a great deal of his success to an American entrant, Fred Opert, who was sponsored by Valvoline Oil for many years in Formula 2, and then on to Can-Am racing. He's a hard driver, someone locking up the brakes there. It's one of the Lotuses. Sorry, it's the Cosworth car of Martin Brundle, trying very hard again to get through on the inside.
As we were watching practice last Friday and yesterday, we noticed that the driving technique on the non-turbocharged cars is quite different from those that are turbocharged.
That's for sure. There's about 150 horsepower difference between the two types of motors, and with a turbo you virtually have to get it in a straight line before you can actually put down the accelerator. And here we have the standards with Nelson Piquet doing an excellent job.
Prost running in second, Niki Lauda is third, Rene Arnoux is fourth, Derek Warwick is fifth, and Elio De Angelis is running in sixth spot. 36 laps completed in Montreal, Quebec. Back at the Canadian Grand Prix, the first five positions, Nelson Piquet leading, Alain Prost running second, Niki Lauda is third, Rene Arnoux is fourth, and Derek Warwick running in fifth spot. 39 laps have been completed. And drivers who are out of the race include Michele Alboreto and the two Williams cars, Keke Rosberg and also Jacques Lafitte. All have retired from competition here in the first half of this race. The first 7 cars are running on the lead lap. A lap down in 8th spot is Ayrton Senna. 9th is Eddie Cheever. 10th is Stefan Beloff. 11th is Manfred Finkelhock. 12th is Corrado Fabi. 13th is Martin Brundle. 14th is Riccardo Patrese. And 15th is Johnny Ceccato.
Here you see the two beautiful John Player special cars going around nose to tail. Good friends, these two drivers, but still very competitive individuals with Elio De Angelis and Nigel Mansell. Nigel lives on the Isle of Man, and Elio lives on the island of Sardinia.
These teammates are battling for position here. 6th spot to De Angelis, and 7th to Mansell. And the number 22 car, driven by Riccardo Patrese, one of the Benetton cars, Alfa Romeo, has stalled on the race course. As a matter of fact, he has had some serious contact with the Armco barrier, it would appear. The suspension on the front of that car is pretty well broken completely.
The car looked exactly like that yesterday after practice, also in qualifying. Nigel going there a little wide coming out of that corner. This is when a team manager might become a little bit nervous, having both cars in such a close variation of each other, and the oil flag, the yellow and orange oil flag being shown in that particular spot, and that might have been the reason for Riccardo Patrese going off the circuit.
Well, the flag system used in the European and Grand Prix races is a little bit different than used in the United States, as Corrado Fabi has come in for his pit stop and is going back out there. The white flag, which is normally used to indicate one more lap to go in American racing, indicates that there is an emergency vehicle on the track. There is no indication given to the drivers when there is one more lap to go. And Terry Boutsen also off the course.
The Barkley arrows there, a little bit of problem. Everyone looking at the back of the car. The BMW powered engine giving off a little bit of smoke.
Go back and look at these Lotuses, sponsored by John Player. Another sponsorship that we should elaborate on. Those are, of course, a brand of cigarettes made in Europe. And the Benetton car that we saw just a few minutes ago, that is an Italian knitwear company. Benetton is sponsor of the Alfa Romeo cars, driven by Riccardo Patrese and Eddie Cheever. From high overhead, the Isle de Notre Dame. And there is the battle there for 5th and 6th position into the hairpin. It is DeAngelis and Mansell going for position.
Fantastic battle going on here, and as I get on the outside, Nigel trying to come through, but Elio says, no way, buddy, we're friends, but we're competitors all the way down to the end. Now, Nigel is certainly going to try something on the inside, possibly. He knows that's not the place.
Well, that brings up an interesting subject that we should perhaps talk about, John. Is there a number one driver in a team like this?
Actually, no. Both drivers are considered what they call equal number ones. They get the same amount of equipment, the same kind of tires, and the same amount of money is spent on both cars. Now, here comes a situation where the leader is going to get caught up in this tremendous battle between the teammates on the John Player special cars.
Well, we'll watch Nelson Piquet's strategy in trying to put a lap on the 56.
Spreading the gloom and doom, especially for Nelson Piquet fans. But I have to tell you, the reason Corrado Fabi came into the pit was because he was having a boost pressure problem. Let's hope that Nelson Piquet has had such an awful doesn't have the same problem, but that he not only finishes his first race, but he finishes his second. I'm not biased, but I just think Nelson deserves a win.
The report from Barry Gill in the pit area. As out on the racetrack, the action is beginning to heat up. Nelson Piquet, the leader of the race, is approaching some slower cars, and those slower cars, if you would like to label them as such, driven by Elio DeAngelis and Nigel Mansell, 5th and 6th positions.
On some of these long shots, you see the two McLaren cars coming up behind Nelson Piquet. Now, if Nelson is held up by the Lotuses, that's going to give a chance for these two to catch up. If they don't start playing games with each other, they should be able to gain some ground on the leader.
Piquet moving through the S's. There are the Lotuses, the John Player-sponsored cars. And there is Nelson Piquet right behind them. These are 6th and 7th position instead of 5th and 6th, as I indicated a few seconds ago. In 5th spot is Derek Warwick. 6th is DeAngelis. 7th is Mansell. And as you indicated, John, the McLarens, there they are, just popping into the screen at the top. Pursuing still Nelson Piquet, but at this point showing no desire to challenge for the lead. The question is, are they able to, or are they simply holding back and waiting for the laps to tick off and conserving the fuel perhaps, and making a run at it in the late stages of the contest? There are the McLarens, Prost and Lauda. 2nd and 3rd position right there as another car moves into the pit area. That is the number 26, driven by Andre De Cesaris. We'll be right back from Montreal. We hope you're enjoying our weekly auto racing series called Speed Week. It's on every Thursday night at 7:30 Eastern Time. We will bring you up to date on what happened the previous weekend in all the world of motorsports and then preview some of the upcoming events. We'll have reports this coming Thursday night on the kart race at Portland that you'll see live later on ESPN. Plus, we'll have a report from Le Mans, the 24 hours which was held yesterday and earlier today. Plus, of course, a recap of this race, Speed Week, Thursdays at 7:30 on ESPN. While we were away, Nelson Piquet, there he is, still has the lead. He was able to get by both of the Lotus cars. However, Niki Lauda is now in second position as Lauda has passed his teammate Alain Prost. So Lauda is second, Prost third, followed by Arnoux, Warwick, and Mansell.
On the inside there, someone very much in trouble. Is it Elio?
That's one of the
It is
Lotuses.
Elio.
Almost takes one of the McLarens with him.
Taking a shortcut across the grass. Where's the other Lotus? The other Lotus seems to be missing entirely. It looks like Nigel and Elio.
I think the other Lotus is running considerably ahead of this pack here.
Correct. Elio must have had a big problem there somewhere.
We'll take a look at it again. There is the first Lotus moving through the corner, and here is the one that got off the course.
Almost collecting Lauda there.
Lauda had to go to the outside and get the left side of the car off the track onto the grass, but no major damage done. So Lauda now second. There is Prost running in third spot as we take a look at it one more time.
Possibly a braking problem here on Elio's car. You can see that they've separated quite a bit between Nigel and Elio. I think Nigel will probably be able to continue, but Elio will certainly be coming in the pits to have a check. See the car going over the curb. These cars cannot really withstand this type of battering here. Almost great car control here by Niki, just touching the dirt but collecting it beautifully. If that little bit of asphalt wouldn't have been there, that could have been a spin right in front of Elio.
A close call for the driver running in second position, Niki Lauda, but he was able to survive and now is pursuing the leader of the race, Nelson Piquet. There's the interval between second and third spot. Alain Prost, who had been running in second, is now back to third and running about 8 or 10 car lengths behind his teammate, Niki Lauda. Lauda with a little bit of distance to close up, though, if he's going to make a challenge on Nelson Piquet, who has looked strong so far in this Canadian Grand Prix. There's Niki Lauda. Well, you got to wonder, John, if indeed these drivers are going to make pit stops, because we're well into this race. 46 laps out of 70 completed.
Again, talking to the team managers, they weren't really willing to give that kind of information, but I would have to say that if they don't make the pit stops in the next 5 laps, they're going to try and go the distance without doing so.
A good shot of the rear wing on these Formula One cars as Nelson Piquet went around the hairpin, though. These rear wings are considerably different than the ones used on the Indy cars in the United States.
Of course, the Indianapolis cars, the rear wing is restricted in its size to try and give a little bit of sensibility to their cornering capabilities, where in Formula One, the #1 problem is getting the power to the ground of these fantastically powerful turbocharged engines. So the rear wings have grown in size with the development of the engines. It was Ferrari who first came out with this particular wing, and everyone said it was a little bit ridiculous. But very soon, when it proved its competitiveness, everyone had a copy.
And of course, these Formula One cars are flat-bottomed. The aerodynamics used on the Indianapolis-type cars, the wind tunnels to give them tremendous downforce, is not permitted in Formula One.
For 2 years now, they've gone to flat bottoms. They were actually the originators of the wind tunnel effect downforce bottoms of the car. For the last 2 seasons, that has been outlawed to try and reduce cornering speeds, lap times. A puff of smoke there.
Yes.
We'll have to take another look at that.
Looked like the Piquet may have let go with a puff of smoke there. We'll continue to watch that situation. While there is Ayrton Senna, who is now running in 9th position. Senna has not been all that strong. There is Piquet in #1. And I guess if he had a problem, he would have chose to go into the pits. He did not, so perhaps it was just one of those things, and he's running all right again.
What the drivers call a cough.
Alain Prost is the leader in the Formula One standings at this point. This is the 7th race of the season. Prost has 28.5 points. Niki Lauda second in the point standings with 18. Rene Arnoux is third with 14.5. Warwick is fourth with 13. Elio De Angelis is fifth in the point standings with 12.5. The reason for the half points is because not full points were awarded for the Monaco Grand Prix, which, as we indicated earlier, was cut short because of rain. Here's Barry.
We go right through this race without a tyre change. The tyres we've looked at on the cars that have come in indicate a lot more people are going to have to make pit stop visits. Poor old De Cesaris has just come in with completely blistered tyres, but he's also got completely failing brakes. Jackie, you pointed out earlier today that brakes will be a major problem at Montreal. Well, it started.
So the situation is we have 48 laps completed. Piquet, Lauda, Prost, Arnoux, and Warwick, the top 5, will be right back in Montreal. On Saturday, June 30th, ESPN brings you another exciting season of high-flying CFL fun. A live matchup between Eastern Division foes Hamilton and Montreal. Another CFL season premiering live Saturday, June 30th on ESPN. We're in Montreal, Canada for the running of the Canadian Grand Prix. And at the conclusion of 43 laps, the leader is Nelson Piquet. Out of the race at this point, Francois Hainaut, Alboreto, Lafitte, Rosberg, Patrese, Boutsen, and De Cesaris. Here is Derek Warwick in the only Renault car in the race. His teammate out with a broken leg.
Hopefully Patrick Tambay will be in good shape by the Dallas race. He's not going to try and run Detroit, and the question here is, what will Renault do about that? Will they run a second car with a new driver for Detroit? That's an important market for them, and they would like to have 2 cars running for sure.
The next race on the Formula One schedule is in Detroit, Michigan, and some of the Brabham mechanics, I understand, John, have some greetings to pass along.
Well, there's a little bit of humor here in even the most serious Grand Prix situations. I have an urgent message here to all the lovely ladies in Detroit, Michigan, from all the lovely Brabham mechanics. If any one of you would like to meet a real live Formula One mechanic, please stop by the garage area starting Tuesday. There's a PS says, "Same thing for you Texas ladies." I think that'd be a good experience for everyone who can make it into the garage areas to say hello to the world champion here, as they refer to themselves, Brabham Mechanics. In the pits, we have Stefan Beloff in the Tyrrell, normally aspirated engine. Again, the mechanics not in too much of a hurry.
Beloff running in 10th position.
Pulling something. Had no idea what that was.
It looked like they were putting fuel in the car, but I'm sure they weren't, or at least they better not have.
Almost looked like something might have come adrift inside the cockpit, like a water bottle or something like that. Certainly some fluid moving around.
There's the leader, Nelson Piquet. We would like to wish all fathers around the United States and Canada happy Father's Day.
For sure.
I'm sure my father watching from Indiana this afternoon. Here's Barry Gill.
Just to mention for Ken that his father's done it again. That pit stop took 7.96 seconds. The tyres and, of course, the mystery ballast, which I believe is East Horse.
There is Arnoux in car number 28, the Ferrari. He is being shown now in 5th position. Warwick has passed him. There is Derek. And behind him,
commentators do not have the advantage of large numbers on these cars anymore. Going on the inside there, Manfred Winkelhock having a look. You really have to rely on the driver's helmets to be able to identify who is who. Manfred really having a try there.
Manfred is shown in 11th position, a lap down, so he is not on the same lap.
But Manfred doesn't care what lap he's on. He's there to race, but it looks like Arnoux is actually slowing,
yes,
for sure.
As now 2 other cars have been able to pass René Arnoux, so Arnoux is in trouble. There's the leader, Piquet.
Arnoux slowing.
The leader, Nelson Piquet, who who has led all the way in this race, and we have now completed 53 laps. We only have 17 laps remaining. There's Derek Warwick running in 4th spot right now. And Winkelhock is right ahead of our leader.
On that long shot down that straightaway, you can see now that the Parmalat Brabham is not bottoming out at all. There's no sparks coming out, and this shows you the different characteristics of handling that the driver has to adjust to throughout the race event.
Right behind Nelson Piquet is the other Tyrrell car. Now Nelson still trying to put another lap on Manfred Winkelhock from West Germany. Perhaps he can do it here on this short straightaway. He moves to the inside, and Winkelhock does give way, and Piquet puts another lap on him. He's now 2 laps down.
This is the type of driving style we saw out of Piquet all last year. Never making a mistake, very smooth, calculating, and in the lead. Someone stopping there. Again, I think it's the Stroll Bandit.
Right at the hairpin. We'll see if he is able to get off the track. Meanwhile, Piquet has passed that portion of the racetrack and is moving back up to speed. That, of course, is the slowest part of the racetrack, that hairpin, turn number 16 and also turn number 8. There are the standings. Piquet, Lauda, Prost, Warwick, Arnoux, and Mansell. We're at the Labatt's Grand Prix of Canada. We're glad you could join us today, and we'll be back with more action after these messages. Back at the Canadian Grand Prix, we're watching the leader, Nelson Piquet, the Parmalat Brabham. 2nd place, about 5 seconds behind, is Niki Lauda. Then about 16 seconds behind the leader is 3rd place, Alain Prost. 4th place is Derek Warwick. 5th is Rene Arnoux, who is now a lap down. There are only 4 cars on the lead lap at this point. There is Piquet, looking very strong here with less than 20 laps to go in this event. And there is Stefan Belov, who has pulled off the course in one of the Tyrrells, the normally aspirated engine. He is climbing out of that car and calling it quits for the day.
He's climbing out right in front of his pit crew, actually. In front of, he's not in the pit row, he's on the outside of the guardrail protecting the pit row. Mark Schurer still running, the Renault there being overtaken by Nelson Piquet. Mark Schurer is still running with the Cosworth.
And John, it would appear at this point that the Brabham is looking very strong. As a matter of fact, has a 4-second lead on one of the McLarens and a 16-second lead on the other one, and that's a lot of distance to make up on this racetrack.
It's a lot of time in Formula One. Of course, that can be eaten up by one problem, one gear going off, or having to make a tire pit stop would totally eat up all the way down to the 20-second mark. But at this point, Nelson Piquet looks extremely strong for his first well-deserved victory of the year.
Well, now the leader has been able to pass Derek Warwick, and so there are only 3 cars on the lead laps, the Brabham of Nelson Piquet and the 2 McLarens.
Again, showing a very strong McLaren domination so far this year with that TAG turbo engine designed by Porsche. Coming down the straightaway again in the pits now, Derek Warwick. You can see that he did need to get some tires, that's for sure. The blister marks.
4 seconds gone, 5 seconds gone, 6 seconds. Derek Warwick hopes to go through the race. Renault hopes he might be able to. We're standing back to let him out quickly. Warwick really does want to result after all the problems. And as you can see, one of the front cars is stuck into the problem. That took, according to my watch, 20 seconds. So Derek Warwick, a real problem there. That isn't the sort of pit stop he wanted.
So a good stop for Derek Warwick, our 4th place driver at this point. Good quick pit stop at about 20 seconds. There's Niki Lauda running in 2nd spot.
The back end of Niki's car is getting a little bit loose, as you can see there. Front end still gripping quite well, but the back end beginning to show a little bit, and you can see that black line on his rear tires. Those are blister marks. He's going to have to make a decision. Do I try and hold on with the tires that I have, or do I go ahead and spend some time in the pits?
Well, about 13 laps to go here. 57 laps have been completed. So Lauda may be considering a pit stop here, but Nelson Piquet shows no signs of anything going wrong with that car. He rounds the hairpin and heads down the front stretch here in front of us.
Yeah, there's a little bit of wear there on the front tire. You can see the black line of the left front tire. It's the rear tires that take most of the beating. And he does certainly have a lead now on the McLaren. The McLaren must be slowing with those blistered tires on the rear.
Well, the battle among tire companies is a very heated one in Formula One racing, and Nelson Piquet runs on Michelin's, whereas the McLarens of Prost and Lauda are also on Michelin's. The other two tire companies that supply tires to Formula One racing are Pirelli and Goodyear.
This is one of the most important things. All the engineering. Another pit stop. Again, coming back in his pits is Derek Warwick. He must not have liked the tires that they put on the car.
Here's Barry Gill once again with
Well, this really is a bad moment for the Renault team. As you see, Warwick's come back in. The reason that front tire that we saw with a lot of problems, they took it off, put another one on, so obviously there's a problem there. There's something wrong at the back of the car. Warwick will not be a happy man, and neither will the Renault mechanics. Back to you, Jackie.
All right, so Derek Warwick back out on the racetrack after making his second pit stop in 2 laps.
Again, showing the importance of tires. You have to understand that the whole design of a Formula One car only has one contact with the road. That's those 4 black patches of where the tire meets the road. And all that aerodynamics, all that power, brakes, everything, suspension design is transmitted through that rubber down to the road.
Well, Nelson Piquet is stretching out his advantage over the McLarens. It is now a 6.5 second interval between first and second, and almost a 33-second distance between first and third. Nelson Piquet has without doubt been the star this weekend as we watch Niki Lauda in the number 8 McLaren, sponsored by Marlboro, running in second position. But it has been a great weekend so far for Nelson Piquet, the defending world champion.
All the Goodyear tires in Formula One are actually produced in Akron, Ohio, and air freighted to each event. They can take as many as 2,000 to 3,000 tires to one particular race meeting. Tremendous effort by Goodyear to keep everyone in good shape.
There is Nigel Mansell, who is running now in 4th spot, a lap down. Mansell in 4th in the Lotus. 5th spot is Arnoux. And 6th is the other Lotus driver, Elio De Angelis. We mention again that live later this afternoon here on ESPN at 5 o'clock Eastern Time, live coverage of a 200-mile race from Portland, Oregon, the first time that the IndyCars have competed on a road course. In that city, Mario Andretti and Danny Sullivan share the front row, and another IndyCar driver who will be competing in that race, as a matter of fact, won the very first race that was held on this Gilles Villeneuve circuit. We're talking about Howdy Holmes, who raced here in September of 1978 for the North American Formula Atlantic Championship, and Howdy Holmes won that race. Martin Brundle and the other Tyrrell car has come into the pits.
Now they are doing something on the side of the car there. There is a hose. It cannot be fuel.
The question is, what is it?
Well, Barry Gill mentioned earlier, I think some sort of ballast, water ballast.
Water, right.
It must be very important water for them to make those stops for.
60 laps completed now, 10 laps to go in the Canadian Grand Prix. Nelson Piquet has 7-second lead now on Niki Lauda. Back with more coverage from Montreal, Quebec, Canada in just a moment. We understand that video has been restored. And we're just in time for the final few laps of this race. Less than 3 to go now. We are watching the McLaren in second position, driven by Niki Lauda, and now the third place car, driven by Alain Prost.
If Alain can hold on to that third place position, he's going to raise his championship points, which of course is the all-important thing as this series progresses across North America, is who's going to be the point leader and at what level going back to the European circuit.
Nelson Piquet's only finish this year was in Belgium, a 10th place finish. He is on his way to a victory here this afternoon if the car can hold up and if the fuel can last. This will be his 11th career win. Last year he won 3 races in winning the World Championship, but as we indicated earlier, it was his consistency that brought home the World Driving title. His first win, as far as a Grand Prix was concerned, was back in 1980, and it was here in the United States, the Grand Prix West.
Nelson, a tremendous personality on the circuit, one of the drivers who makes contact with the public, always willing to give a good interview and try and explain exactly what's going on in his car. Not reserved at all about using one of the 6 languages that he speaks fluently, and it's amazing to be in an interview situation to hear him go from French to Italian to Portuguese to English with the greatest of ease.
We're watching René Arnoux there for just a short time. He is now running in 6th spot, 2 laps down to the leader. Once again, back up front to the leader of the race, Nelson Piquet.
He's just hoping that everything keeps going now, that the taste of victory is in his body, and all he wants to do is make sure that everything holds together so that it becomes a delicious meal.
And we believe this is the final circuit of the course. The starter did raise his finger indicating 1 more lap to go, so if Nelson can guide his car around the 2.74-mile course, he will win his first race of 1984 and his 11th career victory.
Bernie Eccleston will be very pleased. Bernie, the head of FOCA, Formula One Constructors Organization, has done a great job of raising Formula One to the standards that we currently enjoy around the world.
You can see the fans beginning to anticipate the victory by Nelson Piquet, as several of them have raised their hands in cheering him around this race course. Good close shot of Piquet as he maneuvers his car through the S's, now onto his back straightaway. He'll be heading towards turn number 14 and number 15 here. And after going through those S's, we'll move on to another straightaway. And then under the Parmalat Bridge, he is nearing, at this point, turn number 16, the final one on the course, the hairpin. Coming up here in just a moment, you can see him downshift and brake hard. Here he is into the hairpin, turn number 16. He comes off of the corner onto the straightaway, and here is the checkered flag. Nelson Piquet from Brazil has won the Canadian Grand Prix. The McLaren string will not continue here. Of course, they have won all but now 2 races this year, as Alboreto won in a Ferrari earlier, and now the Brabham of Nelson Piquet comes home in the winner's circle. And as far as points are concerned, Prost will maintain his lead in the World Championship, as he will get credit for 3rd position if everything goes here as they are right now on this final lap. Niki Lauda will be 2nd in the World Driving Championship points with 24. Then Arnoux, Warwick, DeAngelis, and Rosberg.
Really a fantastic drive by Nelson. Look at him, he's very happy, hoping that the luck has changed, coming back his way. Tremendous effort by those loving Brabham mechanics who are very eager to get to Detroit and Dallas. Fantastic exhilaration to the team. I was talking to the mechanics earlier, and they say that morale was a bit down, but this will certainly bring them back to carry on, hopefully another victorious strength throughout the rest of the season.
So it was about a 9.5-second victory, according to unofficial statistics, for Nelson Piquet, with Lauda 2nd and Alain Prost third. Elio De Angelis was a lap down in fourth spot, and Nigel Mansell was in fifth, 2 laps down. 3 cars were on the lead lap at the end of the contest. There is Mansell, right ahead of Nelson Piquet, who is on his cool-off lap, so to speak, receiving the congratulations of the thousands of fans who have gathered around this course. There are 26,300 grandstand seats. All of them were filled for today's race, plus there are several other thousand people standing along the fences and in the middle, in the park area of the circuit. And there is
out of gas.
Arnoux, who is out of gas.
That's what you call calling it close.
That's right. Just enough to cross the finish line, and that's all you need, though. Piquet, meanwhile, has pulled into the pits. The other cars are in front of him, so it'll be a few minutes before he can make his way to victory circle. But Piquet celebrating his first win of 1984. He was 22nd here last year at the Canadian Grand Prix. This was his 85th Formula One race, and it's registered as a win. Safe race. We had no major accidents on the course. A couple of people into the guardrail, but no serious contact, and another Formula One race has been won with no serious accidents.
I don't think there was any damage done that can't be repaired in time for Detroit and Dallas. Nelson there doing some mysterious thing.
Well, it could be a problem where it just gets so hot in the cockpit, and with those heavy shoes and fireproof socks on, that perhaps his feet are blistered.
Well, remember, he has that radiator up front now, which is going to be conducting more heat into that area of the car. The mechanic has a water jug in his hand, and that is what he's doing. He's trying to cool off his feet a bit.
Well, this is a heck of a way to celebrate a victory here, as Piquet has gotten out of his car on pit road and just sitting there beside his car, now taking the helmet and the balaclava off.
There's a smile. Look at him. Great. He's enjoying it.
Despite the fact that those feet probably are giving him a lot of pain, he doesn't really care, as he has walked off with a victory here this afternoon. There are the final results. Piquet, Lauda, Prost, De Angelis, Arnoux, and Mansell. The top 6 drivers here at the Grand Prix of Canada will be back at Montreal in the Canadian Grand Prix. The winner of the race, Nelson Piquet, is in that truck right there, the back end of it, and he is being transported to the area, hopefully, that we'll be able to get an interview with him. But Nelson Piquet led all the way this afternoon in winning the Canadian Grand Prix. As far as points are concerned, John, with his victory today, Nelson, who, as we indicated earlier, has had all kinds of problems this year, has moved into a tie for 7th position, so he's still got a ways to go if he's going to successfully defend his World Driving Championship.
That would be a real accomplishment for him to still succeed in defending his championship, and actually McLaren hasn't been hurt by this too much. If some of the people right behind them, like Arnoux or if Warwick would have gotten these 9 points, that would have been much more of a threat. If McLaren had to lose to someone, they would have liked it to have gone this way.
So Alain Prost, who is leading the points, finished 3rd in this race, and Niki Lauda, who is 2nd in the race today, or rather in the point standings, finished in 2nd place today. Well, the Canadian Grand Prix has been brought to you by BF Goodrich, makers of TA high-tech radios. We again invite you to stay tuned at 5 Eastern Time for coverage of the kart race at Portland, Oregon, and then we'll have another kart race at Cleveland in July. And John, thank you for your help in today's coverage.
It's been great to be here, and happy Father's Day to my dad back in Des Moines, Iowa.
And our thanks to the CBC English and French for their coverage of today's race. Thank you, John Bisignano and Barry Gill. This is Bob Jenkins saying so long from Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and the Canadian Grand Prix won by Nelson Piquet.